Welcome to the MudRoom, our weekly free and live uncommon sense parenting class. How's everybody holding up? This is rough. It's rough. Silver lining though, we no longer have snow. So my kids are much happier to be outside now, and it's actually getting kind of warm. It was actually 20 degrees the other day. So fingers crossed we'll be able to open our pool soon. I am much preferring life without snowbanks. But that's really the only update that I have because, quarantine. So we're just going to jump right in. Before we do there, hey Emily! Before we do, allow me to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Allana Robinson. I'm a parenting coach for parents of toddlers, preschoolers, and kindergartners. I help parents just like you understand why their children are misbehaving and how to fix it without yelling, shaming, or timeouts. I host the MudRoom, which is what this is. I also host the Parenting Posse Facebook group, which is at the moment over 7,000 people strong, and we invite you to join us if you haven't already. I also host Parentability, which is my membership-based group coaching program that guides you through building your child's behavior skills. If you're watching, say hi, let me know that you're here and how you're holding up. I really do want to know. If you're watching the replay, drop me a replay in the comments, and let's just jump right into it. Not a whole lot of preamble to go on here. So, one of the hottest topics in the Parenting Posse, for obvious reasons, is how to deal with aggressive children. How to get them to stop hitting you, biting you, throwing things, headbutting, etc. We don't want to get hurt, and we don't want our kids to get hurt while they're trying to hurt us. This is also obviously a very emotional topic. When your child is trying to physically harm you or harm someone else, it makes you feel unsafe, and it often makes you feel really culpable. You feel like it's your fault that your child thinks hurting people is okay. I have heard that phrase over and over and over. My child thinks that hurting people is okay. And that makes you feel guilty and like you failed them. And it scares you because you don't want your child to be the social reject who hits people. Nobody wants that for their kids. But there are two reasons that children are aggressive. And if we can support our kids in sorting out those two things, then you'll notice a drastic reduction and eventually elimination of their aggressive tendencies. So the two reasons children are aggressive: one, they don't feel safe, and two, they're exhausted. It is one of those two reasons. Both of those reasons result in the same thing. They go into fight or flight. Okay? They don't feel safe. It's their amygdala that perceives danger. And for children, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're in physical or even mental danger. It can be as simple as something is unknown to them, something is unfamiliar to them. Then it puts us into a very highly alert state, and if that perception of danger persists, then we go into fight or flight. The kids who run away, they're in flight. They are physically trying to run away from the danger. The kids who hit, bite, headbutt, etc., they're in fight. They're going to claw their way out of this situation. Same thing with exhaustion, only different catalyst. If your child is running on low energy, if they don't anticipate getting a break to reset their nervous system soon, their amygdala will go, okay, enough with this thinking crap. That's nice, but it's not necessary to keep us alive. And we're so low on energy right now that we need to preserve it in case we get put in an unsafe situation. It puts the brain into essential services mode. We've talked about this before. Essential services are like eat, sleep, eliminate, and stay safe. So our brain goes into essential services mode, and if you ask your child to do something that isn't encompassed in those 4 essential services, they go into fight or flight because you're demanding that they use what little energy that they have to keep themselves safe. And again, some kids will run away and some will fight. That means that no matter what, Your child is scared when they're aggressive. They feel vulnerable, and like the only way to protect themselves is to physically defend themselves. You know, the best offense is a good defense. We need to stop looking at aggressive kids as aggressors, and we need to change our lens and start looking at them as defensive. Now, I understand that this can be hard to do. One, because you're getting hurt, and it is very difficult to be empathetic with someone who is hurting you. I get it. But also because often we feel that they shouldn't be defensive in response to whatever demand we've put on them. They should feel safe in whatever situation that they're in. I really, really want to challenge you to stop shoulding on kids. When we should on people, we automatically remove our empathy. We place our expectations above their feelings of personal safety, and that's not okay. Should they be able to do this? Should they feel safe? Well, maybe the answer is yes, but they can't and they don't. It doesn't really matter what they should be able to do or how they should feel. They don't. So we need to stop shoulding on people and step back and look at what is happening, remove our ego from it, because that will get us much further, much faster. Emily says, could it mean that they're afraid of getting in trouble with us as parents? That would be a safety thing, right? I don't feel safe. I'm afraid that I'm going to get attacked, even though it's not an attack, right? They just don't know what's going to happen. Remember I said it just has to be something unfamiliar or unpredictable? They don't know what's going to happen, and that's enough to put a child into a feeling of, or a lack of safety. So what do we do about it then? Well, we either figure out why they feel unsafe and fix that, or we reduce the demands that we're putting on them so that they're within their ability to meet them. And this can take so many forms. Often one of the reasons children are low energy is because they have an unmet sensory need. Like we talked about the other week, they need a break. And they don't foresee getting that break or that input that helps them organize information in the near future. In which case, we need to proactively ensure that they're getting breaks. If a child feels unsafe, what exactly is making them feel unsafe? This can be a person, it can be an object, it can be a lack of, or an overwhelm of sensory information. It can be a social pressure, like being scared that they're going to get in trouble. What is making each child feel exhausted or unsafe, or both at the same time, is going to be extremely unique to every single child and every single instance. But it's there. Look for it because it's there without exception. But what about in the moment? How can we deal with it when aggression is happening in front of us and we don't have time to be analyzing their energy level or how safe they feel? Because you're right, that's something that has to be done proactively. We need to observe, try strategies, tweak, adjust. That takes time. And when someone is getting hurt, that is not the time to do that. So in the moment, we're going to fall back on the mantra of attention to the victim, not the aggressor. The aggressor is being aggressive because they want something or someone to get away from them, to stop putting demands on them, to stop making them feel unsafe, right? You don't attack something that you want to come closer to you. So take the victim, remove them to a safe space. Rarely, but it does happen that you can't remove the victim and you have to remove the aggressor. But I challenge you to really consider if that's what needs to be done or if that's just because that's what your instinct tells you to do. Taking control of an already escalated child's body is unlikely to make them feel safe and calm down. So, if at all possible, first take the victim, remove them to a safe space. Even if that victim is you can remove yourself. Get them cleaned up if they need it. Make sure they're taken care of and calm and that they feel safe. Afterwards, after that happens, the victim is totally taken care of. You're going to return to your escalated child. Now, generally, removing the victim will remove the threat and therefore automatically give them that space that they need to calm down. But if they aren't calm yet, that's priority number one. Help them regulate. Help them come back to calm. That might mean that they need you to leave them alone. It might also mean that they need a hug. Every child is going to be different, and every situation is going to be different. This is also why often certain parents or certain caregivers are the only one who can approach any one specific child. Often it's because that child feels safest with that caregiver. So once they're calm, then you're going to go into a logical consequence process, or an LCP. The full LCP. But you're going to swap, or I guess insert, empathy between the declarative statement and the problem-solving question. Okay? You want to empathize with your child. And I know that can be difficult. So start with a declarative statement. That's generally a great way to start empathy. But you're going to empathize with the child and try to determine what it is that they were trying to accomplish. Were they scared? Did they feel threatened? Was the other child too close? Were they trying to get a toy that they wanted? If they hurt you, were they not able to do what you asked them to do? Were you not listening? Empathize. Okay, this isn't the third degree, it's empathy. Validate their feelings. Again, I know that can be difficult to do, but your child's feelings are valid too. And you're going to get much further, much faster if they feel like you understand them. Then, do not skip over the collaboration step of the LCP, or you're not going to see any results. You need to make sure that you're using all of the steps, and the focus of the LCP will be on achieving the goal that they were trying to achieve when they got aggressive. So if while you empathized with them, it comes out that they didn't feel like they could put their shoes on, they were too tired, they were too low energy to get their shoes on. I know I use that example a lot, but it's just one of those things that tends to be steeped in controversy or steeped in big emotions, even though it's fairly simple. The LCP in that instance would be focused on how can we make it easier for you to put your shoes on before we go outside. Remember, you're problem solving here. It doesn't matter if you don't think it's a problem, or if they just tried harder or listened better that they could do it. The fact that they got so upset that they got aggressive with you is proof that that is not the case. They had no more energy to try harder. They felt too unsafe to use their listening skills. All those things live up here in their neocortex that is completely disconnected when they go into essential services mode. So focus on how to make it easier for them. That doesn't mean that you've got to do it for them. You can make it easier by providing them with Velcro or slip-on shoes, or maybe you just need to hold the shoe still for them. Something that was driving my 3-year-old crazy was that when he would put his foot in the shoe, it would slide away from him while he was putting his foot in. So we just got like a small offcut of wood from my husband's shop, and we wrapped it in dollar store felt, and I just used the glue gun to stick it there. And now that's up against the baseboard in our entryway, and so he can put his shoe against that, and then he pushes his foot in, and the shoe doesn't just slide away from him. Problem solved. But I wouldn't have ever figured that out, that that was the problem for him, if I hadn't empathized with him and collaborated with him on a solution. Ultimately, though, we need to be focusing on reducing stress and improving those skills. All of this is just a band-aid if we don't go in and solve the root problem, which is that they don't feel safe or they're getting exhausted by using their weak mental tools all the time. You'll find that you're constantly putting out very similar fires, and that your child can't generalize solutions from one instance to another if you don't go back and deal with the foundation. So if you're doing everything that I've laid out here and it's just having a very short-term effect and then everything's going back to the way it was, that's your signal that it's time to start focusing more on skill building and stress reduction and critical thinking. And probably a good time to go put your name on the wait list for parentability. So how do you feel about that? Does that sound doable? Do you have a bit more of a plan to manage the aggression moving forward? Give me a yes in the comments if you think you can do this. I know it sounds like a lot and I know it sounds really hard, but you'll find that when you get into it, it's actually fairly easy to follow and it feels so much better than meeting an attack with an attack. Sophie says, if my son is hitting during a tantrum, even if I leave, remove myself, the victim, he will follow me and continue hitting at me. Then you're not in a safe space, are you? So you need to remove yourself to a place where you are safe and you can take care of you and he cannot get at you. That might mean that you have to lock yourself in the bathroom. That might mean that you go hang out in your bedroom. That might mean that you go hang out in the yard and they stay inside. There's lots of different ways to do that, but you have to get yourself to a safe space. Alexandra says her daughter does the same. Yep, because they're trying to reach that status quo, right? They're trying, at that point, they're in fight. They're trying to get the thing away from them. And even if they're following you and it's like they're coming towards you, it's really difficult with little kids because, especially with us as their moms, where their primary attachment generally, sometimes it's dad, but usually it's mom, where their primary attachment, so there's this push-pull where you're the source of danger, but you're also my source of comfort. And if that sounds confusing to you, just imagine how confusing it is to a young child. It's, right? They want you, but you're also the scary thing. Or you're also the thing that has put them, a demand on them that they can't meet. So yeah, often that results in them pushing you away, getting upset, being aggressive, and then following you when you leave. Because they're like, well, wait, I do want comfort. I just don't know how to access that because, you're also the dragon right now. Kendall says, just got here. Sorry if you went over this. My oldest gets aggressive at times with his younger brother. He'll poke him, trip him, hit him, throw toys out of nowhere. They can be in separate places in the playroom. I ask why, and he says he doesn't want to talk about it or just screams at me. Jealousy, or is he just being a shit? So it goes back to one of those things where he's either feeling attacked, which if they're in separate places of the room might not be the case, but it also could be. It could also be a social pressure that they stay separated and he really wants to play with him. Maladaptive play invitations, often you'll see aggression as a maladaptive play invitation. That falls under that I want to play, but I don't know how to play, and therefore I don't feel safe thing. It can also be both at the same time, right? Not knowing how to insert yourself into play or not knowing how to adaptively create play between you and somebody else is asking them to use those weak mental tools that they can't access currently, and then it's draining. So it can have components of both. And so it could be that, or it could be, as I said, that he's drained, he's out of energy, he needs a break, and he just hits a wall, and then he can't meet the expectation of continuing to play quietly in a space where he needs to have a break. That break for him might be that he needs some alone time, right? So every child is different. What drains one child's energy will refill another child's tank. So it gets very, very individualized very, very quickly. Whoa. Comments. What is the P in LCP? This is the first I've heard the term. Logical consequence process. We have a blog post on my blog. I think it's allanarobinson.com/NLC intro. That explains the whole thing. Also, do these two reasons still apply when they throw a fit because they aren't getting their way. My son immediately gets angry, name-calling, hitting, throwing stuff when we tell him no. We stick with our guns, but that doesn't seem to curtail his repeating. It doesn't seem to learn that throwing a fit doesn't equal getting his way. Okay, again, you're asking him to do something, or you're denying him something that he perceives will give him a boost in energy, right? Generally, when children get upset because they don't get something that they wanted, they're being denied something that they wanted, it's because they perceive that thing as being calming to their nervous system. And then when you deny it to them, you've basically said, no, you don't get a refill of energy, and they freak out. So what we work on in parentability is identifying what those things are, and then making sure that we're giving something to them that will fulfill that need. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the thing that they want when they get upset. We find different ways to fulfill that need throughout the day so that they never get to that point where they're so low on energy that when you say, no, you can't have a popsicle right now, you have to wait 20 minutes until after dinner, that they lose their mind. So yeah, same thing. It all comes down to low energy or safety in one way or another. It's one of those two things. So if he says, if I try to talk to him afterwards, he'll act afraid of me. He'll do like this hyperventilating scream and then scream at me to leave him alone. He can never tell me what he was upset about. Well, that might be because he's really young still. And again, you're asking him to use skills, language skills in that case, that he might not have the ability to use at the level that he can think, right? Expressive language is usually a year behind receptive language. So kids can think much more complex thoughts than they can necessarily verbalize. So usually when that happens, again, it's that exhaustion bit where they don't have the ability to actually tell you. And it's not that he's scared of you, I wouldn't think. It's probably just that he knows that he did something that he shouldn't have, and he's embarrassed, right? Most people don't want to talk about things that when they know they screwed up, right? Like, I do it too as an adult. Doing my taxes with my dad, he asked me a question, I didn't know the answer to it. It wasn't anything that I'd done wrong, but I was like, I'll have to look into that, right? Like, I avoided the question just because I didn't want to look like a moron, even though it was a simple question, and he probably wouldn't have thought any less of me if I just admitted that I didn't know the answer. So that's a human instinct, is to protect ourselves protect our energy is more like it, by dodging questions and activities that are going to cost us a lot of energy. In that case, probably emotional energy, because they feel ashamed. They feel embarrassed. So everything comes down to those two things. They're either exhausted, they're either low energy, or they don't feel safe. Okay? Any other questions? No? All right. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you again next week for another Uncommon Sense Parenting class. Bye.